Welcome everybody. My name is Jeff Fowler. I'm the Vice President here at the Apartment Owners Association. And I'm building a 20,000 square foot building in East Asia, and we have about 40 construction workers on site. And if you could believe it, we had a beam in the third floor collapse and go all the way down with 40 construction workers on site. And thank God, not one person was injured. Really, I just believe that was just incredible divine protection. But if I had known, that was 13 years ago. If I had known 13 years ago about zebra construction, that wouldn't have happened, because that construction company, they didn't test their cement, and that weak cement just fell. It caused a collapse there. I really don't want you to have a collapse in your building and for there to be loss of life. For you, it's not going to be bad cement, but it could be an earthquake. And so Zebra Construction is sponsoring this time today, and you'll want to contact them. You'll want to take action, and you'll want to contact them. You may want to get a couple other quotes as well. But anyway, they're our sponsor today. To tell you a little bit more about AOA, our goal is to help you make and or keep more money, and to make the process of providing housing for others more enjoyable and easier. And this live stream is just another example of that. We're going to keep you in the know in all different ways. Next week, we have another way to keep you in the way. We have an event with it's a legislative update with Michael Brennan, and that will be good. All the new laws that have come out that are for this year, you're going to find out about that. You'll definitely want to be there. We're going to keep you in the know. And one thing that I do want to tell you, one specific thing, it's specific to AOA. No other membership has this. 0 memberships, only us, and it's document screening. Fraud is on the rise today, and a lot of people, they can go online for $8.95. They can create a pay stub with a software program. What this tool will do for you, it will help you recognize whether that pay stub is authentic or not. So if you are an AOA member, you can log in to your membership account and you can upload a PDF file of that pay stub or that bank statement, and we'll be able to verify that for you. And we have this deal, we have this AI technology only because an AOA member created it. And so we're very fortunate, and this is just another reason. There's many reasons to join. Even today at the end of the talk, before we have the question and answer, Zebra Construction is going to give you a special offer that's just for members. And so I'm excited to see what that might be. And so you're going to want to join AOA. You're going to want to subscribe to this AOA USA channel so that you can be kept up to date on the latest happenings in the rental housing industry. If you like it, go ahead and hit that like, and go ahead and toggle over that notification bell so that whenever we have content, you're able to catch that and not miss it. And so today it's my pleasure to introduce a speaker. We can get to it. We're going to be talking about the self-storage retrofits. They've done Zebra, and our speaker today, they've done over 100 projects. They specialize in self-storage retrofits. They're not doing ADUs. They're not doing anything else. This is their niche, and this is their running lane, and they run it well. And they will give you a great price. And anyway, so our speaker, she's passionate about that. And I've spoke to her once, and I just realized that she's very passionate about giving you the best. And she doesn't want you to be taken advantage like I was 13, 14 years ago. So it's my pleasure to introduce to you today, Michelle. Your name, I want to get it right. Dury. I didn't look at the notes. It just didn't pop up in my mind. Here she is, ladies and gentlemen.
Hi, everyone. So my passion is making sure that people are educated when making a decision about their retrofits, because this is a once-in-a-lifetime project for most property owners. So what is retrofitting? Retrofitting is adding an element to a product that wasn't there when it was manufactured. So soft story seismic retrofitting is adding a building, adding elements to the building to bring it up to code for seismic. Sorry, can we turn the TV off right here? So learning from the past, in 1978 we had a catalyst for a building code change with major earthquakes in Southern California. And so buildings built before 1978 need this seismic upgrade for soft story retrofitting. So the USGS has a probability of 30% of a 7.5 or greater magnitude in the next 30 years. So this is a map that I got from the California Earthquake Authority. And if we were to look at the epicenter hitting all the way in the Salton Sea, we would feel violent shaking in Los Angeles, which is why it's so very important to get these buildings up to code so that there isn't a collapse, because violent shaking is buildings falling off of their foundations and building collapse as well. So these municipalities have adopted these ordinances that were created by the Federal Emergency Management Agency and Southern California Engineers the Structural Engineers Association of Southern California. So if you're looking at your deadlines, on our website we actually have every city and a place to check your deadlines. So there's a link to every city there. But then we have coronavirus. So how is coronavirus affecting our cities and the deadlines? Well, all of the deadlines that have passed since the emergency order was put into effect will not matter, but once the deadline is over, the emergency order is over, you'll have 2 weeks to comply to those deadlines. So what makes a building soft? So shallow pad footings, weak column to beam connections, inadequate sliding resistance, and small pipe columns. And then the top level is more stiff than the bottom. And garage doors do not add any stiffness or structural element. So if we look at this building, we know that this front line is soft because that's where the cars drive in, and that's, a very common scenario we see. But then we look at these sides and we wonder, what is going on this line? We actually have to do a little bit more investigative work to find out if it's soft or not. So looking at these buildings here, this one has a little bit extra shear on the bottom level, making it not soft. The next one has a little bit less shear because it's got that extra window, so it is soft. So it's really, really important, even if you have approved plans. When I go to a site with a set of plans, I still check these measurements because maybe there could be something there that isn't necessary because the building was measured incorrectly in the first place. So elements used to retrofit, very commonly we have a moment frame. So a moment frame is going to have a rigid connection, and then it's going to be set down into a pad footing and a grade beam or tie beam for that sliding resistance. And then the grade beam is made out of rebar and concrete, and not all grade beams are made equal, so this can definitely add cost to the project depending how the engineer designs it. Cantilever column is great because you can use it in 2 directions. Some cities allow you to only use 1 cantilever column, which can save in cost. And then larger pad footings are needed for retrofitting as well, because most pad footings are pretty shallow on these buildings built before 78. And then the drag system ties it all together so that you can have just one element on a building instead of having a column on every single place that there's a column. We don't need that. People talk about shear walls a lot. I don't think that they're cheaper because there's a possibility of termite damage and dry rot, and then also the possibility of the plaster breaking in the tenant's unit. So as much as possible, I like to stay away from shear walls, but sometimes you can't avoid it, and it is still a great option, but I am always going to recommend steel. And then sheathing is on the ceiling. So everything that we're adding has a purpose and a reason. So we're collecting the earthquake's force and sending it back down into that foundation and into the ground. So blocking is going to be usually around the perimeter, and then it's used for special nailing patterns. Any sheathing or shear walls is going to add an extra deputy, which is extra cost. So here's a real life example. This guy is standing with his feet together, and this girl pushes him and he falls over. She's the earthquake's force. Now he's going to spread his legs. This is the moment frame or cantilever column, and she's going to push him again, and he's not going to go anywhere. So now his friend, or the other column, has his feet together, and he's going to give him a push, and that guy is going to hold up his friend. So that's how we can only use one element in one area to support the whole building. So researching an engineer. So engineers are the most important part of any project, and I know a lot of you probably hired an engineer and you're being told you should redesign your plans. We'll take a collaborative approach with you. If that's the best option, we can always assign a new engineer to the project and change the engineer record. Whatever works best for you, we will work through it with you. So always check the license of the engineer with the Department of Consumer Affairs. You're needed through the whole project, even during construction, for structural observations and any field changes. And make sure when you sign with an engineer, you know how much their structural observation fees cost. A lot of people will get taken advantage of during the construction phase, and the engineer will charge for every single time that the contractor calls him or asks any questions, even if it's his plans that are unclear, or hers. So then getting started with engineering, I would check references. You can actually look up projects on the LADBS website. So, whoop. It's a little too crazy here. Just gonna, there we go. So check to see on the website whether they have their corrections, if they responded quickly or not. And then always ask to see the plans before they submit them, because once they're submitted, there's really not a change unless you submit a whole new set. So choosing a contractor, not all contractors are made equal. So make sure to get a PDF of the plans to bid for construction. Ask for a list of projects completed. You can check their license online, make sure it's active. Make sure that they have workers' comp. Check the personnel. Are you talking to the contractor, the RMO, the person who's supporting that license? And then check one of their sites on the permit inspection lookup. How long did a project take? Down payments cannot be over $1,000 or more than 10% of the project. This is really important. I've seen some retrofit proposals or contracts where they're asking for $30,000 before they even step on site. Deputy inspections are due on site, so these are things that could be extra in a contract. Structural observations, we talked about those. And then also seismic gas shutoff valves need to be complete before any retrofit project can be closed. And then stucco and paint is a possible extra. Lead and asbestos abatement, that is a common thing that comes up with retrofitting. The stucco needs to be tested. If it's positive, abatement needs to be done. So reviewing proposals and estimates, we're looking at this worksheet that we can actually give to the AOA if you'd like to get a copy of it. It's really great for comparing estimates. So this one here, we've got 52,000 and 38,000, two different bids. One includes all of the extras and one doesn't. So, whoop. So here we've got the bottom, it's not switching, okay. So it's actually the one that was less ended up being more because of all the extra fees. So tenants, we have tenant habitability plan or means and methods. This is something that the contractor will either include or not include. And then we need to make sure that we know how to deal with the tenants when they request relocation. We handle all of that for you, as well as the posting. Tenant parking will need to you'll have to ask the contractor if they'll be allowed to park or not in the evenings. If they can't, then you might need to, supply your tenants with the loss of reduction of services. And then signage on the site. When you go to the contractor's site, does it look safe? Is it clean? Is there debris sitting everywhere? It's really important to drive by and check this if this is something that you're looking for in a contractor. And then do they use employees or subcontractors? Because this can add a lot of cost to your project. This particular project I drove by, and they had replaced every single column in this project. And so instead of using 8 cantilever columns, they could have used 1 moment frame and cut the project's cost completely in half. So this is a type of project that I would recommend re-engineering. If you don't take action, you can be liable. So even if you're within your deadline date, if there's an earthquake and your building collapses and you haven't taken action, you could still be seen as liable. Like the property in Palos Robles is a retail store that collapsed. 2 women perished, and they ended up owing the family $2 million. And then once your deadline passes, your insurance company will most likely drop your policy. You won't be able to sell the property. You'll have legal action taken by the city. Eventually, your building will be red tagged and possibly demolished by the city. So it's good to get started on this. You will not lose a parking space at the building. It's written in the ordinance that you cannot. Tenants will most likely not need to relocate. And then how do you pay for this? This is a huge question I get all the time. You can do a refinance, traditional bank loan, personal life savings, which we really don't want to do that. So there's other great options. You could find a briefcase full of cash at the train station. We'd all like that to happen. But cost recovery, you can cover up to 50% of your costs, and we'll actually help you with that application process and make sure that you get that 50% back from tenants. And then the PACE is a property assessed clean energy loan. So it's only based on property equity, and it goes on your bill as a tax levy. It's not a lien, and it doesn't affect your personal credit. So this is something that's really great if you're looking for something that's going to keep you liquid, and it goes with the building if you're to sell. So that retrofit bill is somebody else's problem after you sell. I did it in 20 minutes, I think. So now I think we can open up to any questions. Oh, wow. I talked as fast as I could. Yeah. So, I guess I've gotten a lot of calls lately, and people are very wary when they call me, and I can hear it in a lot of owners' voices when they first call, and I can tell that they've already talked to some contractors and they've been told that they wasted their money on their plans. And I don't want you to ever feel like that. A lot of people are in the same boat. These engineers are doing a lot of plans, and you can't expect to be perfect on every single one. So if there's something missed or measurements are wrong, you can talk to the engineer that you started with. You can ask them if they can redesign it or resubmit it at a reduced cost, or we can recommend an engineer that will do a really great job in starting over with your plans, which isn't ideal, but you'll end up with a lower construction cost, and it sometimes does make sense. So I don't know. Did I forget to talk about anything?
Great.
Okay.
So we will open it up. We're going to open it up for questions now. So if you have a specific question, this is a live stream, so you can go ahead and ask your question. And you can put that, if you're on the AOA website, the AOAUSA.com website, at the bottom there's a little blue button. If you click on that, you can enter your question, and they'll get that question to me. So the questions are being fed to me from YouTube and from Facebook and from our website. And what we normally do when we meet in person is we have a excuse me. There we go. Should I start? I'll go start over, I guess. So, yeah, so we have questions. If you're on YouTube, if you're on Facebook, if you're on the AOA website, you can ask questions from all those places. Again, that blue button at the bottom on the AOA website, you can submit questions that way. I'm getting the questions and fed to me from all these different sources. And what we do when we normally have our seminars, or if we have a trade show, our $1 million trade show, what we do is we have everybody get in a line, and so we have let everybody ask one question, and then we circle back around. So we'll ask one question, and then if you have a second question, we'll go ahead and get to that after we get through all the other questions. So I hope this has given you time to put some questions in for us. And anyway, thank you. I think there were some really good things there to note, and we'll just go ahead and start off with Priscilla in Los Angeles. What is soft story retrofitting? Maybe she missed the very first part, but could you explain what soft story retrofitting is, please?
Yes. So soft story retrofitting, we are not taking away anything from the building. It's a really big misconception that we're adding elements to hold the building up. So you already have your gravity system with your pipe columns or, wood columns, whatever it is. So we're adding elements for lateral support. So that's going to be the moment frames and cantilever columns and grade beam, and then the drag system. So all of that's working together to send the earthquake's force back into the ground, and your building takes less of the brunt of the earthquake's force.
Got it. Okay, thanks. And here we have Sarah on Facebook. Who needs the soft story retrofitting done?
Yes. Any building built before 1978 is not going to be up to current seismic codes. This is even residential buildings. You can have your house bolted. And then the ordinances are for 4 units or more. But if you're under 4 units, you can still retrofit. It's just going to be voluntary. There are a lot of cities still that don't have an ordinance yet. If you wanted to get ahead of it, you could definitely have your building retrofit. There's definitely no wrong time to do it. Waiting until the ordinance, you can, but we don't ever know when there's going to be a big major earthquake.
Okay, yeah, and here's a question from Hermosa Property. If you have not been notified by the city of LA, are you still liable by law?
That's a really good question. I would have to talk to an attorney on that one, but it would be definitely a good idea to have a professional come out and take a look at the building and take some sort of action. I imagine any earthquake insurance you should still keep actually after you've had your retrofit. The retrofit is only to keep the building standing for tenants to safely exit the property. We're hoping that it saves the building and causes less property damage, but ultimately it's to save tenant life.
Here's a good question from Israel in Santa Monica. Which cities have soft story ordinances?
Yes, the cities with soft story ordinances are Los Angeles, West Hollywood, Pasadena, Beverly Hills, and Santa Monica.
Okay. I noticed Glendale wasn't on there, huh?
It isn't. Is that a new one?
No, I'm just curious.
I was like, did I miss
that you missed it.
I missed the news flash?
Yeah, living in Glendale, curious about that.
Oh, yeah. I think Glendale is still considered Los Angeles. It's pretty close.
Right. So it's LA County and LA City proper. Those are all, and then you have your city of Glendale and the city of Pasadena. And so, yeah, things are all over the place. Next week, Michael Brennan's speaking. That may be a question that, well, he may know that one, but we can, if you call in, our people can research that. Our advisors can research that and probably tell you more about that. All right. So here's a good question from Emmanuel in Pasadena. How much does retrofitting cost?
Ooh, good question. Have to call us and find out. Oh, I'm kidding. You can expect it to start in the range of $35,000 for a very small project. And I mean, it can go up to 250,000 or more. It really depends on how many soft lines are on your building. I mean, a 4-unit building that has 3 soft story lines could cost more than a 12-unit that has 1 soft story line. So really you would have to have somebody come out and take a look. And as well as, like I said, those grade beams, engineers design them all different ways. So it could have more or less rebar, the size of steel they use. There's a lot of different factors, but you could, I guess, see that range.
So you mentioned soft gray lines. Is there a way for the owner to know what that is without having anybody come out?
You would really need somebody to come out, just because in that slide where I showed the building that could have the possible 3 soft lines, because we knew the one that the cars pulled into was soft, but then there was that long line with the open sides. So you'd really need an expert to come out and measure to know how many soft story lines there were.
Great. And I totally forgot. We were going to offer something for the AOA members. So could you tell us what that is?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's right. We will give free permits to all AOA members. So just mention that you're an AOA member when after we give you your estimate, and give us your membership number, and we can offer to give free city fees. So plan, check, and permit fees will cover for you.
Wow. Thank you very, very much. It definitely pays to be a member and stay in the know. So, wow, that's awesome. Thank you. Here's a question. What are the benefits of performing a seismic retrofit or upgrade?
I'd say peace of mind is number 1. Number 2 is being able to charge more rents. A lot of tenants have gotten wise to this, so they know that it's going to happen. They know the type of building it's going to happen on. And so when they're moving into apartment buildings, a lot of them will ask, hey, has this been retrofit, or am I going to have to put up with a month or 2 with losing parking during the day? So definitely.
Yeah, that peace of mind thing, just so you know, I was not gray before I started that construction project 13, 14 years ago where I had the collapse. And so that peace of mind, definitely you'll want that. And who wants to see loss of life either? So get it done. You don't need a big lawsuit. We don't need to see people die, right? And that peace of mind, that's a great benefit. Mm-hmm. All right, here's Casey on YouTube. Is this only for LA City or also for LA County?
Yeah, so the ordinances are for the municipalities, so it's for the cities. But if you're in LA County, you can definitely still retrofit and, take some liability off of yourself and peace of mind. Just because there isn't an ordinance in your city doesn't mean that an earthquake isn't going to damage your building. So, yeah.
This sounds like a technical question. It is from YouTube. Which rapid visual screening methodology do you use? Assuming that you use rapid visual screening methodology.
I'm not sure what specifically that means, but the way that we would inspect a building is we measure all of the soft story lines and then take photos. I have a meeting once a week with a different engineer, and then I basically go over the projects with them and decide what would be the best design for the building. And then once the calculations are done, I meet with them again, and he says, I have this design option or this design option, and I usually just push towards the more economical one. But if a client is concerned of how it's going to look and they had a specific request, then I would push them towards that design.
Great. Richard on YouTube, how do I know if my property requires this retrofit?
If it's built before 1978.
There we go.
And has the soft tuck under parking.
Great. Here's Ivy on YouTube. Have you handled adding an ADU instead of retrofit?
This service, if it's something you're interested in, I highly recommend getting a feasibility report from an architect. That costs usually around $1,000. and they'll basically do a site plan and figure out what specifically you can build. Any ADUs, I recommend getting the architect to start with the plans and then get your, I guess, bids after that. We're a specialty company, so we focus specifically on retrofitting and stay in our lane and do a really great job. And any like remodeling or general contractor that does new construction or remodeling can do an ADU if they have the plans. So that's my recommendation.
Great, thank you. And Chris in LA on the chat, what is the most important thing to consider before starting a project?
The most important thing to consider is what type of service do you want? What's important to you? Is it service? Is it price? Your engineer is your most important part of your project. So don't use an engineer that has maybe like done a really small project for you. Make sure they have experience in retrofitting, because I've actually been through, I've gotten plans that are just completely like I open them and it's not anything to do with retrofitting, but they had submitted them 3 times and it had been a year. So the engineer is number one. So find somebody who is experienced.
Great. And here's a good question. How long, from Jennifer on Facebook, thank you for that question. How long does it take to complete a project? You pull up the truck the first day and the last day you're leaving. What's that time period roughly?
Yes. Depends on the size of the project, but I would say 30 to 45 days on an average to smaller project. Larger projects, I would say 60 days. But it really depends on the contractor you're using and also if there are any design changes during construction. So that's why it's really important to work with an engineer and contractor that have worked together before or have good communication, because I've actually had a project where the owner hired the engineer and the engineer didn't get us details back for 3 months. So that site sat for 3 months with no movement because of the engineer and the detail we were waiting on.
Wow. And on YouTube, so you mentioned that moment frame. Do you recommend that as the cheapest first choice if possible?
Yeah, a moment frame is a great option, but I'd say the cheapest is cantilever columns. You can actually use the existing rim joist or beams instead of that beam on the moment frame. So you just have the 2 columns and you hook into the building's existing beam and create the drag system out of that instead, and it's much more economical.
Okay, here's a good question. We have viewers all over the state, and we have Loretta on YouTube asking if you know of a good. It sounds like you don't do work up in Northern California. Do you have a recommendation? Do you know a good outfit that's up in Northern California?
We are good friends with Retrofit One, and I think that they're up in Northern California now. So I would call Helen. She's great.
Great, and also check the contractors and vendors on the AOA website. This is really a good opportunity, I think a good moment just to share that. There was a retrofit company advertising that was pulled because the community gave us feedback on that. So for any of the contractors or vendors, if you have good feedback, give it to us. If you have bad feedback, give it to us. And we use that and we try to keep we really hope that the contractors and vendors that we have in our magazine and on the website are ones that are going to do you right. And Irma in Santa Clarita has a question in the chat. What is THP?
Yes, the THP is the Tenant Habitability Plan. So any city you work on, there's a certain noticing practice. So the THP is for Los Angeles, and it is about a 15-page document that gets posted at the tenant stores and mailed. A lot of companies say that they do the THP, but you need to make sure you know specifically what does that mean. Do they just submit the information to the city and then send you the email that they send, and it's your job to put everything together and put the tenant's name on each page? or do they actually make the packets and post them and mail them like Zebra does? So this has to be posted at least 20 days before construction can begin, and is crucial to getting your clearance for your permits, and also if you're participating in the cost recovery at the end of the project.
All right, here's YouTube. Kenny, do you know if there are any similar ordinances in San Francisco and in Northern California area? I know we have an office in Alameda, and you can talk to the people in the office there, and they should be able to help you with that. Allison's in the office there, and she can answer that question for you. But do you happen to know offhand?
Yes, actually Northern California was the pioneering for the retrofitting. So it came before Los Angeles. I think they started in 2014 with their ordinances. So yes, there is one.
Richard on YouTube, he's asking, is there a website to check for retrofit deadlines?
Our website, if you go to our resources page, we have all of the cities with ordinances listed there. So you just click the city, and then we'll have the link to find your property and the deadline there under your city.
All right, Roland, my retrofit is rated for a 6.9, 3-story with soft story parking underneath. What can I expect for survival after a rated earthquake? Okay, I see what they're asking. It's a 6.9 earthquake on this 3-story. Does it mean safe exit, or can I expect not being red tagged?
So the building has been retrofit?
It's been rated at a 6.9. It's been retrofitted. It's a 3-story soft story with parking underneath.
Okay. Well, they take the probability after retrofit in this ordinance. The probability of collapse goes down to 5%. I can't remember the first. 50%?
Oh, wow.
So it goes from like 50% down to 5%. So it's really more safe after you retrofit, but to say that it's absolutely not going to collapse, nobody really knows until it happens, unfortunately. But they did start retrofitting buildings in the 80s after the 1978 building code change. And so that was going to be hospitals and schools and that type of building. So by the time that Northridge hit, the engineers were actually able to see how those retrofits were performing and make adjustments and changes. So they've had all of this research and time to develop new technologies, and we're hoping that it does hold.
Great. And then here in the chat in Los Angeles, we have a great presentation. How many retrofit projects has Zebra done, and in what areas, and do you have any references? They asked a lot of questions all at once, but I'll let you go for it.
Yeah, so Kevin and I actually were with another company before that I was the founder of. So with that company, we did over 100. And then with Zebra, we have been in business for 2 years, and we have done 14 retrofits as Zebra. But it's the same team, the same crews, and we are ready for more. So we've got about 40 projects in our pipeline, and we only do 2 to 3 at a time to keep it small and managed and make sure that we give great quality to every client.
Awesome. And here's in the chat, who decides whether a parking space is lost? The measurements of the city don't really work. Space too tight. Will the city negotiate with setting up compensating spaces, i.e. maybe putting in a new driveway from the street?
Yes, so the city has permitted spaces on their plan. So when an engineer submits their plan, I've actually seen somebody have a gate around their parking space, and the city made them remove it because it went through 2 permitted spaces during the retrofit. So the city is who decides that. If it's under 7 foot 6 inches for the compact space, as long as it's existing, it's still considered a permitted space if it's smaller. But as far as like adding like driveways or more parking, that would be a planning department question. So you could, have an architect, or not an an engineer come and do like a site plan, and then you could take that to the planning department and decide what you have the possibility of doing.
Okay, and here's our last question on YouTube. Who does WEHO have any cost recapture?
It does not. So there was some questions. There was a town hall meeting about it, but it was never passed for the West Hollywood recoup and tenant from recouping costs from tenants. So it never passed.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
And before we wrap up here, any last words that you'd like to share with us?
Yes. We are putting out an article in the magazine every month. So anything new that's happening with the retrofitting, we're using our ad space just as more education. So be sure to check that out each month. And, you know, we hope to be a resource. If you've already done your retrofit and need help with cost recovery, we can offer those services as well. So any questions you ever have, please give us a call. We love to educate and help.
Great. Thank you so much for your presentation. And I know that we have NorCal viewers, and on the 4th of February, we will have Richard Beckman speaking, and he will specifically cover your area. So you'll want to tune in for that one. He's a eviction attorney, so you'll want to tune in for that one for sure. This next week, we have Michael Brennan. He's going to cover laws for the whole state that are new. So that legislative update, that's going to be a big download, and you'll definitely want to be part of that one. So go ahead, hit the subscribe button. Make sure you sign up, join AOA, and keep in the know. You'll get those permits done for free if you're here in the Southern California area. And every week, if you watch these videos, there's usually something that the presenter is offering for free for members, and so these are just benefits that are stacking up for you as a member. And we thank you for being a member, and if you're not, we hope that you got a lot out of this one, and we will see you next week.